Hi, I'm Brandon DeMore, host of the This Ain't Luck podcast. And today we're here with Steve Chelly, our Chief Creative Officer, Joel Thatcher, our Head of Operations, and our very special guest is Mr. Mark Frazier. He is the founder of the Sync Summit. Now, the Sync Summit is an international organization that holds conferences pretty much in every corner of the world. This conference is where musicians can come and meet with music professionals and sync professionals, make connections, and learn about music sync. The Sync Summit also has a wonderful website where there's educational material, and I believe you can be mentored with Mark there. Mark will straighten me out on that if that's not true. First, I want to thank you, Mark, for being here with us. It's awesome to have you here. I'd like to start off by sort of getting in the Wayback Machine and going back in your career so we can get us caught up to all the things you've done, because there's a very interesting backstory here that brings us to you being the founder of the Sync Summit. Technology companies, advertising,
a lot of stuff.
A lot of stuff, and it matters a lot because it really lets people know who they're talking to you. And then after we get caught up with that, we'll get into all the specifics about the Sync Summit. So let's go back to the very beginning.
Okay, let's do that. So I was born in New York City. Anyway, moving on from that.
Dude!
And I started taking guitar lessons at the age of 6, and here we are now. But no, to give you a bit of background, I've been involved in music and technology and marketing primarily since the beginning of my career, which started when I was in high school. I was actually a journalist working for a regional, in Long Island, magazine called Good Times. So I was sort of having my own almost famous moment with that magazine.
Can I interrupt you for 1 second?
Yeah.
I advertised in the Good Times when I was
You advertised in Good Times? All right. You knew my old boss, Richard. He was a character.
Yes.
Anyway, I was really into music, and I was writing reviews about all the bands that I loved at the time, which was the early mid 80s. So like 83, 84. So the Gang of Four, the Clash. I think I wrote about Genesis and a whole bunch of others.
I was probably reading your articles, man.
Probably.
I was reading them. I bought that magazine all the time.
So that's where that was my first real music job. And then from there, I went to school. I went to university in New York and then in Paris. And I studied political science and international relations with a minor in music. So I did have music always as part of what I was doing. I started working in technology soon after that. I worked as a market research analyst looking at different kinds of technology and how they could be applied to providing people with access to content. And this was before the internet was a thing. So we had services like AOL and Prodigy and CompuServe that we would talk about, and also we would start to develop services around. I'll fast forward a few years. I left being an analyst and actually started doing stuff. I worked at News Corporation. I was one of the founders of About.com, which was a really big service in the 90s for anybody that remembers it. And also ran Community at iVillage, which was a women's portal back in the 90s. And after that, there was a lot of jumping around, which was sort of what a lot of people did during the .com, always looking
because everything was changing so fast, right?
Yeah.
All this company, that company.
Always looking for the next big thing.
Right.
And this leads me to my next music job, because those really weren't music companies. They were tech content companies. I'm at a party for a service called SonicNet, which was like the first big music community portal. And this friend of mine, he was used to be the head of Prodigy and VH1. A guy named Ed Bennett gets in touch with me, and he's like, Mark, we're going to start this new service with Bandai. And what we're going to do, we're going to have a website that allows people to pick songs, and then we'll press a CD and send it to them. So you can see how old the technology was in 97.
I remember that, dude. I remember that. Yeah.
So
that was a big deal.
It was a big deal back then.
Yeah.
And it was really setting trends. Nobody had ever done anything like this before. So there were a few services like this. This one was called My CD, and I ran business development there for the better part of the year. It was kind of a wild ride, and it was a great education. And this is going to bring us to what's happening later. It was a great education in how the music industry actually works and how music rights and licensing work. Because back then, the labels were just printing money from putting CDs out. It was a very easy business compared to now, at least for those people who were, working at the labels. And we went to the labels, we went to the publishers, and we said, "Hey, we've got this new thing we're doing. Can you license us music?" And they looked at it and they were just like, "Oh, this is not anything we really want to be interested in, but we want to be involved in new technology. So what we'll give you is we'll basically give you the dregs of like our catalog." So instead of the Doors' Light My Fire, we got a version of Jose Feliciano's Light My Fire done by some jazz band. That was basically what we were relegated to.
Hi, everybody. I hope you're enjoying the podcast. I'd like to invite you to join us at ArtistPortal.Studio, where you'll get unlimited drive space for collaborations, free sync opportunities, shareable playlists, and you can meet and collaborate with artists around the world. That's at ArtistPortal.Studio. Join us. Now back to the podcast.
As a result, we didn't have good content, and it was very hard to build a business from it. So that business closed up after about a year and a half. They didn't need us. They were printing money. It was like one boy band after another, whatever back catalog they were selling and repackaging. They were making tons of money off of physical products. So they didn't care about what we were doing. Fast forward, after that company, a few friends of mine started a company called Seductive that was later bought by eMusic. And I went and I joined them in the same role. But the difference between them and that one was that instead of going to the major labels, they went to indies. So they went to indie jazz labels, hip hop labels, EDM labels, as well as individual artists. And they did very well because they had a confluence of two factors. One was that independent labels were looking for new avenues of distribution, and the people that listened to their music were much more technically able than the people from the traditional labels.
Hipper crowd.
So that hit. And also, it was hard to find a lot of the music from these independent labels and musicians. You had to go to special stores, like in New York. We had something called Other Music that was sort of like a place we would all go to get these, rare CDs. So we really opened up a market there. It did very well, and I kept this in the back of my mind for moving forward, that you really have to focus on, no matter what you're doing in terms of distribution or sync or anything else, where you can get the best music from the people that really want to bring it to you for the best price to the best market. So we'll put that aside for a second. Then after that company got sold, and I ended up going to Japan for a while and worked on basically a Japanese version of iVillage. I helped to build that. It was called Women Japan. It's still out there. And while I was in Japan, I noticed a poster for selling ringtones and graphics on mobile phones. While I was in the subway on the way to work, I was like, oh my God, this is the next thing. I'm going to start a company based around this in the US.
If I remember correctly, the way that worked was when you bought a ringtone, it went on your phone bill, so it was easy to do.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. So it was like you paid a ridiculous amount of money. It was between $199 and $299, and there were independent services, and there were services that were done by the telcos, and we developed a lot of interesting services. We developed a service called Bling Tones that did very well, that basically was going out to DJs and getting beats and original music, as well as licensing music. That did very well across the carriers. But what we were most known for at the time, we started off by doing a deal with Billboard, and then we went out to all of the providers of ringtones and the telcos, and we got deals done with them. About 85% of them when we launched sending us data. So that was a real milestone. And when I look back on it, I used to say to people that ringtones were the pet rock of the early 2000s.
They sort of were, but it had to be done. It was a stepping stone to be able to get to where we are. Was an important thing to do.
I agree. But I also realized that technology was going to destroy this thing. Moving on from that, what ended up happening was that our ringtone data collection system was acquired by Nielsen, and I went over to Nielsen to set up their initial mobile platform. So basically, it was something that they called at the time ring scan, which I find hilarious, instead of sound scan.
Yeah, I know.
So anyway, did that for a while, got out of that business, and went and ran marketing at a telco. So I was what you would call a brand manager. And we did deals with studios to do bespoke content people could subscribe to. That included music, that included access to film content built around celebrities. And those celebrities were sometimes musicians, they were sometimes actors. Basically, what the app allows people to do is exactly what I was talking about a few minutes ago, which is, circumvent the gates that telcos had up to get people to pay for ringtones. So now you could create ringtones and graphics and download them for free by using this app, which of course caused huge problems with some of the content owners. But ultimately, it was the way that technology was going. So that was an interesting time, and it was interesting, like being a brand manager there, and I ended up running a lot of that mobile content as well.
It sounds like what I'm hearing so far in these gigs, you're getting into places figuring out how do we make money in a new way, right? There's things, there's opportunities here. I mean, even the bodega thing with the cards, that's someone sitting there going, okay, who needs these cards? I like that. I love it.
So that was an interesting incident, an interesting incident in my career. From there, once the financial crisis hit in 2008, there was massive layoffs at the company, and it was time to go anyway. So I wasn't that bothered by it. From there, I started to get it into my mind about, what's the new model to promote and monetize for artists. And I started to think about a conversation that I had with, I don't speak to him as much as I used to, but I used to speak to Beyonce's dad a lot, Matthew Knowles. I had this conversation with him. I think it was around the time that I was working at the telco I was mentioning. And he had said to me, Mark, I got to tell you about this great new deal that we're doing with L'Oreal. It's going to be a deal where they're going to use music from Solange and Beyonce in the commercials. Solange and Beyonce are going to be in the commercials. And I said to him, wow, that's really amazing. That must be a big payday. And he's like, the payday isn't really, the biggest part of this. Of course, it's nice, but they have albums coming out during the time period of the ad buy. So now we're going to go from having like Sony's budget of maybe 20, 25, whatever $1 million to a $1 billion promotional budget, because their music and their name and likeness are integrated into this multinational ad campaign. And that's where I had an aha moment. And I thought, wow, this is really going to be the way that people are going to be promoted. Because back when he was telling me this story, obviously, for those of you that were there at the time, the music industry was in its worst place in history, and there's a lot of reasons for that we don't have to get into, but it was. And I thought, well, there's got to be a new model that all artists can use in order to get their music heard and to make money. And that was really important for me as somebody that loves music, but also had a lot of friends in the music industry who were emerging artists, who were artists who were just starting out, and who were famous artists. And they all had the same issue. They weren't making money with their music. And if you're not able to monetize what you do, it's really hard for you to continue in your career. There's enough frustration and enough difficulty in what you do day to day to also face an industry where you feel like there's no way to actually make money with what you do.
Hi, everybody. I hope you're enjoying the podcast. I'd like to invite you to join us at ArtistPortal.Studio, where you'll get unlimited drive space for collaborations, free sync opportunities, shareable playlists, and you can meet and collaborate with artists around the world. That's at ArtistPortal.Studio. Join us. Now back to the podcast.
While I was doing that, I had it in the back of my mind, I've got to do this thing where I work with musicians to connect them to opportunities in media so that they can, make some money. And my first thought was, hey, why don't I use a tool like what we have now and sort of plug it into music and find a way that we can connect music supervisors to musicians and help them to find music together. I thought, hey, let's do a conference where we get like 50 or so people together who are decision makers in film and TV and ads, and just speak about the future of the industry and where technology lies in it and what some of the pain points are that we're all dealing with. And that was the start of Sing Summit. My idea in 2012 was like, yeah, let's have this little thing in the library at Soho House in New York. And at that time, there was only one Soho House in New York. And now there's like, I don't know, 8 or something. But I thought, okay, let's put this together. And I started to lean on my friend. His name is Daryl Berg. He used to be the head of music supervision for Hallmark. And I leaned on him to get some introductions to people. We put together an event, and instead of having 50 people, we had about 250 people and totally took over, most of Soho House, which they were, thankfully not too unhappy about. But I thought, hey, we have something here. This is actually
smash head on your hands.
Yeah, this is actually a business. Right. So, as I started to evolve in what I was doing, I thought, okay, we're going to have something here where we can really teach people about what's going on in the industry and connect them to decision makers. So that was point one. Point two, as I started to work more in the industry and actually know what I was doing, I realized, it wasn't the time to do this AI solution, but I would love to work directly with artists as a sync agent and labels as a sync agent. So I started to do that. And I continued to do that with some labels and with some artists. So that was happening on one level. On another level, we started to build out Sync Summit. And Sync Summit, we would go to in the US, New York and LA, because they're different markets. LA is mostly, not all, but it's mostly devoted to storytelling. Yeah, film and TV and interactive. And then New York is mostly ads and brands. And as they're two distinct markets, we had two distinct events. Then I think it's probably because I spent some time living in Europe. I thought we have to do a European event. So we did one in Paris, and then we did one in London. And then we started to work with partners across the world. We started to work with associations in Japan, in Taiwan, in Korea, to basically build bridges between the music usage community. I would say not just supervisors, but people who use music for audiovisual in North America, in Europe, and in Asia. And that was, for the most part, live events. There really wasn't much more to that until about 2017. Then one of the people who was an attendee of the event said, you did this listening session at the event. It'd be so cool if you did those online. And I thought, wow, you gave me an idea. So I thought, okay, let's start doing online listening sessions. So that started with us in 2017. I'll bring on a music supervisor or a sync agent or somebody else who can help people to connect their music to opportunity, have them come on, listen to music, and then give an evaluation. And then at the end, they get a playlist of 5 songs from each of the people that attend those sessions. We've made some bridges by doing that. So that's
Does that go on right now? Is like, you do that now. That's something people can participate in now.
Yeah, it happens on an ongoing basis. We do those on average like 4 times a month.
Then there's the LA event that's coming up in February, right? Is
Yes,
that
the
right?
LA event is coming up in February, and I'll talk a little bit about what we're doing with that. Basically, in 2019, we did something that was strategically important to me, which was our Sync Summit Tokyo. And I work with a lot of the Japanese music industry and have since since like before I started Sync Summit. I put on this event. It was fantastic. It really was a fantastic event.
How many people?
We had about 200 people, and we had people online as well, though we didn't really know what we were doing in 2019 in terms of how to stream it. We had a stream going on, but we weren't like selling tickets for online or making it a package.
Wasn't easy to do, even though that's not that long ago. That wasn't, I mean, it's all this stuff's a lot easier to do now.
Yeah,
a lot more tools. Yeah.
Exactly, but we didn't have that. Really, we tried. We pushed the envelope as much as we could to have a stream going, because we did have a video from it, but that was it. But we had people like music supervisor of all of Marvel's films, which was Dave Jordan, who's a fantastic guy and a great music supervisor. He came over to speak. In addition to that, we had a lot of people that people won't know here unless they're in Japan, but people who basically run, Sony, run Avex, run all of the big labels. So Universal Music Publishing, and a lot of others. So basically we brought in all the right people. And what I was really excited about was that this was for us a jump off point for the 2020 Olympics. Because we were getting set to work with a lot of the brands and the labels that we worked with over the years to do something really cool to get Japanese music heard by the world. And this was something that, was like a personal passion project, but also something we were doing for business. So that was how, the end of 2019 was set up. Obviously, for a lot of reasons that you can imagine, that just didn't happen. And first of all, the Olympics were postponed. Second, we were planning on doing events live, and there was one that I was about to do in March of 2020 in Malaysia. I was invited to do something there, and it was going to be this big gaming and music and sync conference there. And about 2 days before I was supposed to fly to Malaysia, I get this message literally from the Malaysian government saying, "We're shutting the country down, Mark. We're so sorry."
Yeah.
And then I thought, all right, well, in a larger sense, what the hell am I going to do? Because I've got to pivot. So I thought, okay, we're going to send out a note to everybody, and we're going to say, none of our events are happening until further notice in person. But we're going to do an online event. We're postponing our in-person events until further notice because we just don't know.
So this sort of just forced you into making this other part happen even faster.
Exactly.
Right.
And that transformed the company. So basically, I thought, okay, let's do something where we get people to just talk online. So I started doing this thing that we called the Sync Cafe, 5 days a week, 1 hour a day. And I just brought in all of my friends from the industry because, there were people, most of us are just sitting around in our houses.
Right, everyone was going nuts anyway. It's like, we need something to do.
Yeah. So for about 2.5 years, 5 days a week, I would have people come on and just have speak to us. So one time it would be my friend Christian, who's a mastering engineer at Abbey Road, just talking about what he does. Another time, it would be a musician who's also at the National Institute of Health, literally, for the UK, like their version, come in and talk about her music. Then we would have, traditional music supervisors come in, and as it went on, we started to evolve what that chat would be. And then we started to do challenges where we'd ask people to cover songs, we'd ask people to answer briefs, and this really built out our online community. And that really became the second wave of what Sync Summit is. So when I look at Sync Summit now, I see Sync Summit as an educational platform that's primarily online with a few events that we do in person. So then after we realized that this pandemic was not going to go away after a couple of months, I thought, okay, now we really have to lean into online. We started to do courses around sync because a music supervisor and I, his name is Chris Molaire. He does like the Vampire Diaries. He did Get Out with Jordan Peele, does a lot of TV and film stuff. A great guy. Chris and I were sitting around, in our houses. We looked at each other and we were like, hey, why don't we just do a live class, like a real class instead of a master class sort of thing? And Chris and I were very, we had a philosophy to be very immersive and very personal in the way that we worked with people. We would have office hours with people, and we really tried to work hard with everybody based on their personal needs and their personal level of expertise to help them to prepare and present themselves in the best way to the sync community.
So would these classes sort of be like intermediate, beginner, more professional, where you do a class where these people may know more than others? Are they broken up like that? How does that work?
It's sort of like an old time schoolhouse.
I thought that's what you were going to say. As it was getting ready to come, I was starting to picture the Little Red Schoolhouse.
Yeah, it's like a little red schoolhouse. So we had people who were just starting off, and we had people who were, I've had like 20 syncs, and I'm just here, really to, get to know more about the advertising world, or get to know more about how to start, because I was an in-house composer. This is one of my current students, in-house composer at Warner Brothers. And now I've started a sync agency, and I need to know how to do that. And I don't know how to do that part, even though I know the industry really well. So we have various levels of competencies, and this still happens in our classes today, various levels of competencies, but we work with every single person based on, filling in the gaps of their knowledge.
Does it ever happen where, I would imagine it does, that between the people that may be less knowledgeable and the people that are a little more knowledgeable, maybe even in the classroom, they're learning from each other's questions?
Absolutely.
Right? So there's that goes on as well, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of that. And that's the other thing that we do with all of our classes, is that we really try to make them collaborative and interactive, and really just open up questions to everybody, during the class. We have office hours for people so that they can ask specific questions that they don't want to ask out loud in the class. But there's a lot of things that people learn just based on what other people are saying and what other people are asking.
Right.
So that was our first class. Then we did two other classes. One was a class that is still going on now, that I do with a advertising music supervisor who used to run music at Gray Advertising and now is independent, named Josh Rabinowitz. Josh and I do a class that's specifically devoted to the advertising industry and brands. So basically, you get me, who used to, be a brand manager, used to work at the brand on marketing, and you get a guy who's worked literally on, like, I would say definitely over 10,000 projects, putting
And
music.
just so people understand that are watching and listening to this, the advertising sync business is a different world than the theatrical one. Completely. It sounds like it could be the same, but it's a different thing.
Yeah. And that's why we have something specific to it. So we have the general class that does have some advertising knowledge in it, but that one is really like, we start off with, okay, so let's talk about your music itself. Let's talk about, the need to have things mixed and mastered. But now let's dive into metadata, which is extremely important for our industry, and what kinds of metadata you need and what kinds you don't. We'll talk about contracts. We'll talk about negotiations. We'll talk about how to network with people, how to research people, how to send out emails that are polite, and when to send them out. And then we balance out the courses with group exercises and with listening sessions with specific music supervisors, custom music houses, sync agencies, and other people who are there to help to evaluate music and also to meet people and to connect with them potentially for use of their music in future projects. So that's how the classes go. The advertising one obviously is focused more on, like, how do you navigate this industry? Because to your point, Brandon, Most deals in advertising and at brands and most projects do not have music supervisors attached to them. That's
So
the
they're kind of lost a little bit. So they need help.
Yeah, they need help. And I mean, basically what happens is that, I mean, it's just, I could go on for 2 hours about all the intricacies of this because that's where I do
Well,
a
you're
lot
going
of
to go
my
on with the
work.
2 hours when anybody signs up for your course. That's how they're going to learn that, right? That's
Exactly.
right.
That's true. But I will say this to you. The advertising world, navigating it means navigating at the brand level. Who are the brand managers and who are the creative directors at the agencies? Those are the first two kinds of people to go after. But at a lot of agencies, and certainly at a lot of brands, there's not going to be anybody there. So you've got to go to the marketing person or to the creative directors at the
You got
agency.
to find the guy that's sitting in his office going, what are we going to do next? And
Yeah,
then the song shows up to him and he's thinking about the concept for the spots. And the song just happens to be part of that mix, like maybe the location or who the star is. And he's got to get all
yeah.
those things going in his head or
Yeah,
her head.
and it's a wildly different process. And it's also a process where, you know, the brand has a say, the agency has a say, the producer has a say. It's very different than when you're working on TV and film, which is very regimented. Basically, at TV and film, if you look at TV, I'll say streaming because there's really no TV. For streaming, you have a regimentation. You have a showrunner. The showrunner is usually the writer and the director combined. That showrunner always has a music supervisor, always, 100%. That's the way it goes. And it didn't used to be that way internationally, but it's happening internationally that that's the way it is too, because the studios want that. They want that regimentation.
Let me ask you something. Do you think that that's due to the fact that when you make a show, you're not making one, you're going to make a bunch of them for multiple seasons in a row. So you're basically your company that you're the film company or the show company that's going to make it becomes a show making machine that it has to continue to make them over and over and over. So you need that system in place. Unlike every time you make a commercial, it's a brand new show,
Yeah.
right?
That's definitely part of it. Yeah. I would say that, Brandon. That's definitely part of it because, you know, at the end of the day, when you're doing something like, let's say I'm doing a commercial, I'll give you two quick examples. There's I have music supervised ads. I've music supervised one film and I didn't like it, so I'm definitely more in the ad space. But
Why
I'll
didn't
give
you
you,
like it? Can I? Oh, just can you?
it's a grind. It's a
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
doing a
But
film grind, and it doesn't.
yeah, and the ads are more exciting, maybe, huh? Is that like
Yeah.
just more? Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
it's a different business. It's a different business. I mean, I think that film and streaming series can be really exciting too. I don't want to take anything away from that. I think the storytelling and being able to do like, if you do something like, I think one of the best music supervisors out there is Thomas Globich, who works with he works with Vince Gilligan, and I think he's one of the best creative thinkers out there today when it comes to content. His work speaks for itself.
Well, it's Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul and those
Yeah,
kinds of little shows.
exactly, Steve.
Some of the coolest stuff, right? Yeah.
Yeah, he and Vince Gilligan are just like such a great team. You know, when you have somebody like that, they can make amazing creative. But, you know, it's not the same as advertising because advertising you're not working on a story arc. You are to some degree working on what a brand wants,
I mean,
what
a
a
film is
brand
probably
feels
like
like.
building a bridge. You know, like if
Yeah.
it takes a really long time to make a movie, a year, 2 years, the same project keeps going on and on and on and on and on. And I mean, what would be the general duration from the beginning of a commercial idea to the final product? Is it months?
It could be months, it could be days,
It could be days.
it could be over the course of a year. Basically, you know, when you get into what we call ideation in an ad, it is really a bunch of people sitting around a table, almost never a music person. Sometimes there's a music person there, but it's usually creative director, art director. The brand manager usually is not there for this portion, though they're made aware of it by the account manager, who's the liaison between the agency and the brand. They'll start to work through concepts of things. when they're working on concepts, unfortunately, a lot of these creative directors are very visual. So they're thinking about visuals, they're thinking about voiceovers, they're thinking about what actors they're going to hire if there's going to be actors in it. And usually music is relegated to to post-production. So they're not really thinking about music at all. And then they get to post-production, and I'm guilty of doing this myself back in the day before I was doing what I do now, where we were producing a commercial and I wasn't thinking about the music. I was thinking about, okay, so what actress are we going to hire to be our spokesperson? What are we going to do in terms of blocking? What are we going to do in terms of the storyboarding? And then at the end of it, the director, who actually, in the case that I'm thinking of, he's actually a famous musician as well as a ad director. He goes to me, he's like, Mark, you know, we never talked about music. What do you want to do? And I was like, well, what do you think? He's like, well, why don't we go? I have a friend who has a music house. I can just pay him $500 to give us a music bed. And I was like, great, let's do that.
Right.
It's really what happens a lot of the time. And
Yeah.
that's horrible. And I am a reformed sinner, everybody. But
Oh,
I
God.
was a sinner. I was a sinner. I didn't think about
I
the
have some friends that are pretty happening video editors, and they don't care about sound. Period. They don't. Usually
ridiculous.
they don't.
I got a question.
It's ridiculous, Brandon. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so you're talking about kind of the difference between film and TV having a dedicated music soup versus the ad world where they don't really have that. Okay, so the instance of a brand manager, can that be a music guy as well? Because I met somebody a long time ago at a music conference, and he was and maybe you know the name or know the person, but the name escapes me of who it is, but he was the Nike music guy.
JT Griffin.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. So I met JT, very cool guy, but he was the music guy for Nike. And so do they have the bigger brands like Nike and whoever, Capital One or Sony, whatever, do they have a guy that's in that from the brand side that's the kind of the music guru for them?
I'll break this down for you for a second.
Look at this. Show and tell. Show me.
I do want to say one thing here because it's important for me before I start talking about what I know about branding and adding any further to show you my bona fides that I know what I'm doing. This is the Clio, okay?
Nice.
This is
I love
my
it.
Clio. So I am showing you that not mainly to humble brag, but mainly to say to you, I really know what I'm talking about because you don't just get those. So with that said, let's talk a little bit about.
I'm going to put that picture on the front of the podcast, dude.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Hold
the
it up.
thumbnail.
Hold it up,
There you
dude.
go.
That's the thumbnail right there. Pull it back just a little bit.
Yeah, there
There
you
you
go.
go.
Awesome. That's cool, Mark.
That's the shot right
Cool.
there.
All right. So it's only a bronze. My friend said it should have been a silver for the work that we did, but hey, it's better than nothing. I'll take it. I'll just give you an idea of how things work now. So on the brand side, what brands need to do, and this is a big crusade of mine, is to have a sonic branding strategy. And what I mean by a sonic branding strategy is that the brand itself has put together a plan of what they sound like. That's the simplest way to put it. And what that means in practice is what kinds of music affiliate with our brand and
With
with
like
our
Red Bull. I mean, there's a great one. Red Bull has a
Yeah.
friggin' sound, man. It's like edgy sports, snowboarding. Just,
Yep.
I can imagine it
Why
in my
not?
head. Yeah.
You have that. McDonald's is another good example. Coca-Cola is another good example. Pepsi and its associated brands are another good example.
Yeah.
But other brands are getting into this too. You know, Apple is one of the best examples. They
Yes.
integrate music into their ideation from the very beginning. It's
Yeah.
mandated, and you can see it in everything. You know, so this is where I want to see music thought of. I want it thought of at the brand level because at the agency level, they'll do whatever they're told by their, by the
By their
people
customer.
by the people who are, their clients.
Yeah.
So if the brand has a coherent strategy of what they sound like, it's going to permeate through every touch point that a brand has with its consumers. And what I mean by that in a practical level is think of it this way. It's not just like, hey, we're Volvo. we want people to think of us as being safe. We want people to think of us as being fun. We want them to feel a feeling of
Family.
trust, of family. And the music has to reflect that. And Volvo does have this,
They
and it
do.
does reflect that. But
Yes.
also, do they have a mnemonic? Do they
I was
have,
going to say that mnemonic, like Netflix, ta-dum, and you know exactly without even looking at the screen what it is.
you know, which, or, I mean,
Ba-da-dum, ba-da-dum. You know, you're watching a sports program now with so.
exactly. So it's like mnemonics are another part of sonic branding strategy.
Do you suggest that creators, that if they are trying to get involved in this, they think of these brands maybe when they're creating songs, and you think, I'm going to write a song that I think is right for Red Bull?
Well, I don't think they should do that, but I think that they should think about this, think about how to strategize in connecting with the brands. This is a better way to put it, because I feel like, you know, if you think to yourself you're going to write songs for brands, you're doing it in a vacuum, and you should keep your authenticity as an artist first
Sure.
and foremost.
Sure.
Now, if you're hired by a brand to do a custom job, that's a different story. You do what they ask.
Do what you're
Obviously.
told.
Yeah, you do what you're told, basically. But at the end of the day, you know, if you are an artist wanting to approach brands and agencies, start off with brands, first of all, and say to yourself, what brands do I use? This is the first way to start. What brands do I like? Everybody has some brands that they like. You know, it could be, you know, for me, I like Audis. So I have an affiliation to Audis, right? Or I have an affiliation to Sony, you know, because that goes back to when I had my first Walkman. So I have an affiliation to Sony. You can think to yourself, you know, what else do I have an affiliation to?
And the
It could
Trinitron.
be, you know, it could be exactly Trinitron, but it could be an affiliation to almost anything. It could be, you know what? I really like these keto energy drinks, and I'm a runner. So
I got another one for you, Mark. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, and I'm not talking about Joel. I'm talking about I'm not talking about that. Behind you, and it goes in and out of the frame. Is that a Macintosh 128?
That's
it's
an
a
old
128. Yeah, and I
I
if
keep
I could
looking at that.
It's a 128, exactly. And that is an artifact that I actually used. It's from
Wow.
yeah, it's from college. It
I
doesn't
used it
work.
back in college, I think, is when I used
Yeah.
it too.
I mean, you know, it's probably worth bucks because it's like an antique thing at this point, right? It's like having an old Atari or something.
Gotta
You know
be.
what the funny thing is? I don't want to digress too much, but I will say that back in the late 90s, I tried to give this away to the what was it? The Science Museum in New York, and they didn't take it. Now they would be gaga.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But like in 1999, I was moving and I was like, you know, I should get rid of this thing. I don't use it. And I was like, hey, do you guys want this? And they're like, no, we don't need that. We don't have any exhibits for it. And I'm so glad that they didn't take it, because
Right,
now
because it's so
I would
neat.
never give
Yeah.
this to anybody.
I can't believe you noticed that, Steve. I mean, I would usually notice things like that. I can't believe it is very neat.
I
that
just
it's
kept
there.
seeing it behind his head. He chipped his head over just slightly, and I'd see that in the background. I go, what kind of computer
Now
is
I'm like,
that?
hey, everybody.
No.
It's my little
I
Mac.
digressed. That was my bad. I digressed.
It's right next
Okay.
to my 1930s turntable. But
I love it.
Like I have a question I want to ask specifically, because we see this all the time and people have questions and stuff. And you mentioned it earlier when you were talking about preparing the music and stuff like that. And the question I have is about the metadata. So
Mhm.
broadcast waves. Do you use broadcast waves? Do you don't? Do you use MP3s? What kind of metadata? Is it got the publisher, the composer? Do they need their IPI? The genre, the style. Do you put in the name? Because we see this sometimes, like a composer will put like the song title and then, 128 BPM, fun and happy. Do you put it in the name? I mean,
No.
from your experience and the summit and everything, can you enlighten us a little bit, like your perspective on that?
Absolutely. Well, one of the biggest things, and I'll start off by saying I didn't talk about the class that I taught with my friend Patty Carrera, which we did for a couple of years. And she is the head of the Latin equivalent of the Guild of Music Supervisors. So her and I, we've been friends for a long time. And one of the things that we're both crazy about is good metadata. And the reason why we're crazy about good metadata is because three things. The first thing is good metadata shows us that you're a professional. That's number one. Number two, good metadata means that we know who owns what and where we go to pay the royalties. And we know who to get in contact with. Number three, it makes your music findable because you've put in tags that describe the music and give us an idea of what you have. And also it makes it searchable, whether it's on Disco, whether it's on our hard drive, wherever. It is on the internet. It makes it easier for us to find it.
Do you think people should put their contact information in the metadata too? Because in case something comes through and they're like, how do we find this person, right?
Absolutely. And I'm putting this in the chat here. You can share this. Out of frustration, I put together a metadata style guide. I've given it away for the last couple of years for free. It's still very valid, though I probably have to do an update at some point. But the reason that I did this is because we were teaching classes, and I don't let anybody leave our classes unless their metadata is good. I need them, and I've literally had some students where I've had to go back with them 5 times before they got it right. And
it's kind of part of a test. Like it's kind of part of a test. It's like, okay, everybody, I've taught you how to do it. Give me your songs and let me see what you've done. And you say, okay, you need to work on this, or it's like that.
That's part of every course we do, because
cool.
The biggest reason that metadata is really important is, well, all of those reasons are important, but on a practical level, if you send music out to a music supervisor and they open it up and there's no metadata there, they're probably not going to listen to the music, because it's like we're just
who
like,
owns it? What, who does it belong to?
Scary. We're a bunch of risk adverse people who have ADHD and are very busy. So we want to see everything lined up, and then we're like, oh, okay, all the information's here.
This is safe to do. A couple of those guys.
Now, I, unless I'm remembering wrong, I think years ago I saw you in a video talking about putting, I think it was one stop in the metadata as well. That's something important as well.
If it is,
that's important. Yeah. Let's talk about one stop for a second, because first of all, one stop means that I don't have to, as a music supervisor, go out to any other rights holder to do a deal. I can clear the publishing and I can clear the master license with you. So it makes my job much easier. Now, if your music isn't one stop, I need to say this because a lot of people don't say this. If your music is what we would call easy clear, where there's multiple songwriters, but you're in touch with all of them and you have a good relationship and you can get the approvals quickly, that doesn't mean that it's not going to get licensed. If we like the song and it's easy to clear and you can give us the paperwork, then we're going to be happy to do it. But with that said, one stop is something that you should put in, because it shows us immediately this is going to be simple for us. But
plus something could be one stop if you have, let's say, 3 contributors and they've all signed a contract that one of them will be representing those 3 contributors. Then it says, okay, everyone agreed. It's a one stop. When so-and-so goes in to tell people about this, it's all taken care of already. Everyone's agreed. So that's how you can be a one-stop and have multiple creators. Get the paperwork in order between everybody prior to the pitch.
Exactly. That's something that you really can do and you should do, and it'll make it easier. Now, there are going to be instances where you don't have that kind of agreement, and there's specific reasons why. Maybe it's a cover song and you have no
control over. You couldn't do a one stop for that.
I have a list that I give out in my class of songs that are easy to clear, that are famous, that we use.
That's really good, because I was just going to say that if you're going to do a cover, it's probably a good idea to know who owns the publishing and maybe even contact them and say, I'm
Always.
doing a cover of this song. And they're like, oh, we would love that because we want to really license it. So now you know when you present it to someone, when they go to contact a publishing company, the company's like, oh, yeah, well, what, I mean, obviously it's going to be more expensive or it could be very expensive, but at least it's not going to be like, no, we're not allowed to license that song for this reason or that. You already know they're in. You know?
Exactly. That's really important because, the way that the industry works is that you can make a cover of anything, anytime for putting on the DSPs, for putting on Spotify or Apple Music. You can do that all day, but for sync, it's different. You need to get permission from the publisher to license that. And we do that all the time. Reimagine covers are one of the big things that we use across every form of audiovisual media. And this is something that I ask musicians to really consider doing a few reimagined covers because it can really make a difference as a calling card to add to your original music when you're presenting to music supervisors and to other people in the industry. Because everybody's always looking for something which has a unique sound, but also is something that's familiar.
Yeah,
So
right.
great combo.
That thing that makes the difference is as soon as they hear it, well, you're not a familiar artist, but I know that song and it's
Yeah,
a cool version. So you can like
Yes.
sort of snuggle up to it faster.
Yeah. We talked about
exactly.
that on a recent podcast about that, the reason to do covers and to sync, to try and place covers. It's not only about the money, it's about, the creativity of, like you say, reimagining what that well-known song could sound like, and it now can fit perfectly with the medium that you're trying to get, whether it's an ad or a TV show or whatever.
What I think is really cool is sometimes I hear these covers, or maybe they're trailerized or just an acoustic cover, and you're listening for 30 seconds, and then all of a sudden you realize, wow, that's that other song where it takes a minute to hit you, which is very cool.
Absolutely. And that is what we look for. We look for things, we don't look for generally like sound-alikes. Sound-alikes are not something that people want.
Boring.
A lot of boring, but also it's like who wants that? If we have the budget, we're just going to try to get the real thing.
Right.
And, we want something that we can feel some specialness in and some ownership in and some authenticity in that also harkens back to something that's already in the zeitgeist of most people, and is that is something, that we're always looking for. And, in terms of covers, I can't emphasize for sync how important it is, Brandon, to your point, that you find out who the publisher is and you can go on to songview.com, and you can usually find the publishers of famous songs there. And then go to that website. All of them have a licensing info email. Send them an email. They might not get back to you for a week or so, but be a little patient and find out if it's syncable. And I can tell you in real life, when I have a question, I know people inside of the publishers, so I can get an answer quickly. But I do the same thing because honestly, a lot of the time you don't know. An example I can give you quickly is I wanted to do a cover, a reimagined cover of "Rock with You" from Michael Jackson that was written by Rod Temperton, and we wanted to do it as like a straight up kind of like rock and roll song, and we were going to do that. And then I thought, okay, well, this sounds like fun, but I'm friends with the lawyer of Rod Temperton's estate. Why don't I give him a quick email and ask him what the syncability of this is? And he came back to me and he's like, Mark, don't even go there. It's going to be at least $1 million. They're going to have to give permission for the specific license of each license. And it's just not worth your time.
Sometimes even the money. Sometimes the money isn't even the thing. There's a person that's just like, we're not licensing my dad's music for anything. That's it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like, why? When you think about the estate of somebody like that, who's written, literally, he wrote "Rock with You," he wrote "Give Me the Night," he wrote all of Heatwave's music, and he wrote "Thriller." Money's not the thing. They've got money. Money's there. They're more like, what is the legacy? What is the legacy of the work? So you're working with that. And sometimes people are pretty amenable if you're doing something that they feel is additive. But to be fair, most of the time, Estates or the individual person, if you show up and you say, hey, we want to cover this song, you're going to end up being able to get a deal. But the publishing side is going to probably get 5 to 10 times as much money as you will on the master side, no matter what.
Yeah.
Just because
The song's the thing.
that's what is the, that's what the important thing is. Your music's important on the master side, but that's really what they're paying for. So going back to metadata, I gave you guys this link here, and you can give this.
I see it there in the
everybody.
chat.
Yeah, that's the metadata guide that I gave for free, and what it gives you is how to build through Apple Music. And you don't need to use Apple Music, but step by step, you can use that to create a correct metadata set. And this is something that I went through doing with several music supervisors. I asked a bunch of industry peers, do you guys feel comfortable with this? Does this look good? And everybody said yes. I also worked with, I don't know if anybody here knows her, but we did a metadata class during the pandemic. I forgot about this. I worked with an artist called Michelle Weiss-Maslin. Her and I did a metadata class together. So her and I worked on, between her,
cool.
Patty, yeah, she's great.
She's done a lot of stuff with Killer Tracks, I think, and
yep,
APM and also.
Yeah, she does lots of custom work and licensing. I went through a lot of people whose opinions I respected around metadata and made sure that they were okay with what I was saying, and I was okay with what I was saying before putting this out. So I feel very confident that what you have there is a good guide of.
We're going to include that in the link.
Yes,
yeah, we'll put in the link below the video. Right.
Good. And you don't have to take any of my courses or go to any listening sessions to use this. It's completely
Let's talk
free.
about some of the courses quick. Let's
do
go
that.
over. Let's talk about what goes on with these courses, and so people can get an idea what they're going to be signing up for.
Okay, so we've got a couple of things. We've got the listening sessions, we've got the courses, and we have a membership program where you sign up for 1 year and you get access to all of our events, all of our courses. You get 30 minutes a month talking to me about anything that you want to. I listen to your music. I promote it to my list of people. There's a lot of benefits with membership. But going back to the courses first, what we do typically in the courses, the next course that's coming up is the General Sync course. It's a 16-week course. Subscription enrollment is open now, but it starts on January 25th. And basically what we do is every Sunday we have a 2-hour course and we cover a topic. So, the first one is covering introductions and how does this business work. The second week, we will focus on how do you research and get in touch with people. So then I give you some tools of the trade there. And then you have assignments. So then I say to you, okay, so now you're going to pick one person or one company and find the contact information for that person using the tools that I've given you. So that's 1 week. And then the next week we'll talk about, okay, now that you research them, how do you build out a playlist and actually make contact? And then from there, we go through specific areas of the industry and specific other lessons that you need on things like metadata, negotiation of agreements, etc., so that you can start to build your, sort of professional grade presentation of you.
It's a foundation course.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's it. And then from there, what we do is each week we'll have a different person come in and do a live listening session in tandem with me, where we'll put together 5 songs and we'll put them in a playlist. And one of those songs will be played for the guest and for me, and then we'll give feedback specific to the usage that specific guest could have or where that guest could see the music going.
These are the guest songs, or are they songs of the students?
These are songs of the students.
Cool.
And so 1 week I'll have a music supervisor who does TV and film. Another week I'll have an advertising person. Another week I'll have a sync agent. This week, actually, for the class, we have coming up somebody from a custom music house who does music primarily for advertising and brands. And that person will evaluate working with people and their music, potentially for licensing, but in that instance, more looking for collaborators that they could work with on their projects, because a lot of their work is custom just by the nature of their company.
Other writers, singers, people like that, so they
Yeah,
could continue to make new interesting things.
exactly. So we do that. And then we also have pop-up sessions where we bring somebody in to give us a deep dive into their technology or into their other ways that they can assist the students in connecting their music to opportunities. So that's a second thing we do. The third thing that we'll do, and we're in the middle of it right now, and it's been a bit of a wild ride, is I'll come up with challenges, and basically they're like song camps that are built into the class. They're not part of the curriculum, but I decided to, because I'm a big believer in doing covers. I decided to do a pop-up where we just said, okay, you know what? Let's just talk about covers for an hour. And while we were talking about it, I thought, okay, well, we have this list of coverable songs. Let's do a songwriting challenge. So that's something else that we built into it, where I'll break people out into teams, give them a time
Almost
to
like a lab.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
give them time to create music together. I'll mentor them through the process and give them direction in terms of what they should focus on in terms of
Do
structure.
do you match them? Like to say, I think you
Yeah.
should work with this person, so like
Yeah.
maybe the talents are balancing.
I try to do that. Basically, what we did with this class is we had 3 people who were consummate producers, like very successful producers who were part of the class. So I made those people sort of team heads. And
Sure.
then I had people that I slotted in who were writers or sync agents or players that filled in those different, filled in different competencies, hopefully complementary competencies. And over the last few weeks, they've built out different songs based on what they all decided they wanted to cover. So their final product will be done in November. And then once I feel like the final product is really final, and they will be, because they're right now they're at their like third rev of it, so they're almost there. Once their product is ready to go, what I will then do is I'm going to send it out to all of my friends in the sync community and say, these are some covers that we have that are clearable, that have been created by my students. So I try to, wherever possible, not just to give you some lessons, but also, when I can, help you to get yourself and your music out into the world.
The learning
Because
experience becomes a project.
Yes, exactly. And it becomes a real world exercise. And that's important to me. I can't always do that, but with this cover session that we've been doing, it
I
just
think it's a
made
great
sense.
idea. I think
Yeah.
it's a great idea because they get to participate in a real, there's nothing
Yeah.
like doing something for real. It'd be like a law student working and helping on cases, where you're in a real world situation making something that, there's some skin in the game where this song might land somewhere for real.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, it is. It is actually a really, great way for people to learn the ins and outs of the industry, build their competency, build their professional foundation, and also to get some insights into, how we really do things in the real world and actually get their music connected to people. Now, the one thing I can say that I cannot do is guarantee that anybody's music is going to get used by anybody. And it's important for me to say this, is that in everything that I'm saying about sync and about creating music, there's no magic bullet that I can think of, unless you're related to the director. And even then,
even then, he could be like, God, my nephew keeps giving me songs.
And it's just, if I was in an ad agency and I had a kid that was a musician, I'd be like, yeah, you know what? I mean, I'm gonna keep him in mind, but I have a job to do. And this is the
Yeah.
way that music supervisors think. And this is the way that you have to see music supervisors as well as anybody else that you're bringing music to. These people are objectifying music. That's the best way I can put it. Music, in almost every other instance, is subjective. What is it that we like? We all have our own likes about what we like to listen to and what we love and what kind of musicians we have passion for. But when we're looking to use music for a project, We're looking to fill an objective. And the objective is storytelling, selling a product, giving a brand a positive spin, selling a trailer, whatever it is. We're
It's a gear. It's a gear in the mechanism that's going to make this thing
yeah,
work, and it's got to fit.
it's an enhance exactly. It's the sort of like I think of it as kind of like MSG for good or bad. And it can be good and can be bad depending on the project. It's a flavor enhancer, but it's also sometimes the main character. So it's more than a flavor enhancer. Sometimes it's the main ingredient. But we're looking for something that's going to elevate and uplift the project and make it better than it is and make it impactful. And sometimes, the music that I need is going to be swing music from the 1950s from Italy specifically. Sometimes it'll be Italian disco. Other times it's going to be a big K-pop song. Other times it's going to be a straight up rock and roll song or a pop song that I'm going to need from an indie artist that is, is somebody that people haven't heard of before but has a lot of talent. It can go in any direction. So the reason I'm giving you this whole thing is that I want to say to everybody here, I can prepare you and give you the real world knowledge and connections to be taken seriously in the industry. But that in itself is not a guarantee. But I will say this, it puts you above about 80% of the people in the business if you have the right foundation. Your metadata is good. You understand what people are talking about when they say, oh yeah, we're going to do an MFN on this deal, or, we're going to talk to our music coordinator and put you in touch with them. It's like just knowing what the industry
Part of this
lingo
is
is.
why we called this podcast "This Ain't Luck."
Yeah.
This is really about understanding, having expectations, and understanding that this is going to be rejection and this is going to be a lot of work. But you can't even do all those things without these tools that you're talking about.
No,
You really need those tools. And then you can go play that game. But you have to understand it's going to be hard and you're going to have to work at it really hard.
I will say we've had some students that have had a lot of success. And what's made them have success is knowing the fundamentals,
Mhm.
being persistent, and of course having great music. Those three things. And I will tell you from my own experience, there are artists that I work with. One artist I've been working with the entire time that I have, been doing Sync Summit. And it took us 10 years for us to get a sync. And it was just because and he is one of the biggest artists in his country, one of the biggest producers in his country. But when I would bring his music out to different music supervisors, they would say, Mark, I don't really use EDM. I can get EDM from everywhere. I don't really know what I would do with this. But eventually, we started to hit the right people with the music. People started to get known. People started to know about it, and they're like, "Oh my God, Mark, what is this? We have to put this in a commercial. We have to put this into this project. This is awesome." So the moral of that story is that sometimes you'll catch fire in a month. Sometimes it'll take a decade, and that's
Yeah.
the nature of this business. And I want to be straight up front about that.
Yep.
But
That's a good lesson, though. That's a good lesson. That's part of the class as far as I'm concerned. Be ready to be patient, be optimistic, but be ready to be patient and keep doing it. That's why you better love it.
Chris Moller and I always said to people, it's a marathon, not a sprint. I mean, we certainly didn't come up with that, but that really is the way to look at this business. Once you have the fundamentals right and you are 100% in love with your music, the next thing is just getting yourself out there, coming to events, whether it's my event or somebody else's, I don't care. Online events are great. In-person events are great. Never be afraid to send music out to someone, but prepare it properly. Go out, do your research, know what projects the person works on, know what their needs have been. Check out their IMDb if they do TV or film. If they do advertising, take a look at some of the past work on iSpot.tv, because you can find advertisements there as well as on YouTube. Get to know a little bit about the person's career, do a little bit of light searches on places like LinkedIn to see what kinds of projects that they've worked on. and also get to know the brands that they work with. So get to know who these people are, but never be afraid to send them music once you've become a little bit informed. Because at the end of the day, no matter what, and this is something I want to say too, and some music supervisors, who cares? They may not like me saying this, but first of all, when people say, "Oh, I don't take unsolicited music," I say to myself, "Well, I mean, isn't your job to find music? Like you don't take unsolicited. Like, dude, what does that mean?
I'm with you on that
What does
one.
that mean?
I'll say that with you.
Yeah,
Isn't that your job to find music?
yeah.
Yeah. We're all in.
Yeah, okay,
Right.
we're all in agreement on that.
Yeah.
There are some people who go, "Oh, I don't take unsolicited music." I'm like, "Okay, so you're just gonna I don't know what you do. You don't want to find new music. You don't love what you do." Number one. But number two, a lot of people do that because they just don't want to get inundated with emails that say, "I've got the perfect song for you," or getting like an 8-paragraph letter. And we all get them and we're all like, "Oh my God, what do I do?" And people are very busy. So what you want
That's
to
another thing about it, though. The 8-paragraph letter is a lesson to learn. Don't write an 8-paragraph letter. Get the point
No.
across quick, right?
The first thing you do when you send a letter out to a music supervisor or a brand manager or creative director is, "Hi, I just want to start off by telling you that I really love the work that you've been doing with Wednesday. It's a fantastic musical palette that you've created, and I really just think it brings emotion to the show." So already, if you're writing that letter to Jen Malone, you've already said to Jen, "I love your work. You're great." And
And I
everybody
understand it. I understand the work. Yeah.
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 So you've already established, first of all, approbation, praise, and legitimacy. Now you've got them feeling positive about this unsolicited email.
This is
Then-
life advice as well. I mean,
Yeah.
this is just regular business
Mhm.
stuff too. That applies to everything. I think everybody should get that.
100%. And then from there, you can go, the main reason that I'm the other reason that I'm writing you is that my name is Mark Frieser, and I'd like to introduce myself and my music to you. I have songs that are dark and haunting and could be of use in some of your future projects. Here's a link to my catalog, or here's a link to a sampler of 5 songs. Thank you so much for your time and everything that you do. I hope you have an excellent week ahead, day, weekend, whatever. And then you're out. That's it.
Before we wrap it up, let's just tell we've got an upcoming Sync Summit coming up in February that
Right.
people can come and visit. And do you want to tell everybody what's going to go on in that, and maybe let's invite them to come?
If you want to be part of the LA event, you can attend in person or online. And in any point, what we try to do at that event, and this really permeates throughout everything we do, is I really try to build in opportunities for people to make connections and to get their music heard. We're not gonna do a deep dive into metadata as one of the panels. That's a snooze fest.
It's going to be more social. There's going to be a lot of social stuff going on, and it seems like it's
Networking.
going to be fun. You seem like you
It is.
have a little bit of fun there, right?
Yeah, we always have a lot of fun, and it's different than what we just did in New York. The New York one is a bit more stuffy because it's advertising and brand, but the one in LA is all about the music. It's all about the music and connecting musicians and music companies to the people that use the music in their creative projects. And there are some ad people at it, but it's mostly television and film people, and it's mostly about giving people a forum to connect their music to opportunity. And we actively work with you to connect you to people at the event and before and after. Again, I can't guarantee that every meeting is going to happen, but you can give us a wish list and we'll do our best effort to make the connections.
It won't happen if you're not there.
Exactly.
You got to be there. You got to come, guys.
And also another thing we do is we give a playlist link for you to upload your music to every single speaker. And we do that with all of our conferences. So that's something that happens after the event. And we give you the contact info afterwards of all the people who are there who give us permission. That is that. I could talk more about it, but I will just say, go to the website, go to the links, and you can see all of these things for yourself and decide if you want to join us or be a part of it.
That's great.
Awesome.
Listen, I was going to say what you just said, but now that you've said go to the website, go to the links, and I'm backing them up, go to the website, go to the links. Mark, You're an awesome person. Thank you so
You
much
too.
for coming to hang out with us. Turned out great. Thanks for being here. Sync Summit, Mark Fraser, you guys have to go. Thank you very much for coming and visiting us, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Thanks,
I
Mark.
hope to see you guys soon.